Hey y'all, my name is Jasmine Jones. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and you are watching Black Girl Therapists in the Wild. Today on Therapist Sips and Reviews, we are reviewing I May Destroy You, Season 1, Episode 2, Someone is Lying. Yes, this was a good episode. I had emotions. I felt things for the characters. It was a lot. So we start off with Arabella and her friend in some diner. I think they are eating lunch. I think it's the same day after what happened to Arabella. So the morning, I guess she took a nap in the morning, got up and went and hung out with her friend Terry. And Terry is like, bagging on her, talking about, Simon and on a weeknight and shit like that, because she hung out with Simon. And Arabella's like, she keeps having flashbacks to the dude on top of her, and she doesn't know why she's having these flashbacks. And, she's helping on the course of them eating. She's also helping her friend with her script for her upcoming audition for this is a commercial or some shit. I think it's a commercial. It sounded like a commercial, some social justice-y type shit. I don't know. And her friend notices that her phone case is broken, and Arabella's like, I don't know how that happened. And her friend noticed the cut on her head, and she's like, I don't know how that happened. And Arabella's freaking out because she doesn't know how this shit happened. And then she's talking to her friend, and she's telling her friend that she keeps having these flashbacks to this dude in the toilet stall. So that creepy ass fucking room was a toilet stall. In the toilet stall on top of her, I guess I'm assuming it's Terry. It's some white dude. I don't know. I didn't see him in a group when they showed them all together, but maybe he came later. Who the fuck knows? But I think it's Terry. And he's like thrusting on top of her or some shit. But at this point, she's still like disconnected. Like, she's trying to rationalize the shit, trying to make it not her. She's not ready to face what happened. She's not prepared yet to face the trauma that she has experienced. No. So what she does is she calls Simon. Well, she's brave for this. I feel like, a lot of people would just repress this, push it down, and not face it, not want to deal with it, not want to believe it. Be in denial about it. But she's brave as fuck. Even though she's disconnected from it, she still wants to find out what's happened. And so she calls Simon. She asks Simon, like, hey, Simon. This nigga is evil, though. He's like a wolf in sheep's clothing type of evil. That shit is dumb. So she's like, hey, Simon, how did I break my phone last night? How did I get home last night? What happened last night? And he's making up some shit talking about, he dropped his evil ass cousin off at the hotel and then went home. And then she's like, well, how did we part, bitch? Like, I don't care about your fucking evil ass. And he's like, I walked you back to work. Like, okay, like he added that piece on. This nigga's evil. He's the devil. He is the devil incarnate. Yes. So she's like, but like, how did I get my phone's broken? How did I get this scar on my head? He's like, well, like, you fell or some shit. So he said she fell. And, she's like, okay, that's what happened. Okay. Yeah. She really wants to believe that so much. She tries her best, but she's a curious nature. She's a curious cat. Yes. And she's like, okay. And she hangs up the phone and she's like, that explains everything. And then she tells her friend, Terry, about the images she's having in her head of the dude thrusting on top of her. And then she's like, I've been looking at these self-help videos all day on the brain and shit. So, about false memories. Like, you can have false memories and shit, like fake memories. She's trying to rationalize that shit. It's like a defense mechanism. You like, make it make sense. You gotta make it make sense. You got to. And she's trying to make it make sense. So make it not be what it is, and that's what happens. It happens. That's what happens. You don't want it to be what it is because you don't want that shit storm to come after all that shit. You don't want all of that. You don't. Nobody wants any of that. And so she her friend walks her back to her apartment, and her friend's looking at her crazy as she's telling the story of of the nigga on top of her and shit, and she keep having flashbacks to him. And her friend looking at her crazy. And my thing is, the friend is the one that introduced her to Simon. So my thing is, like, did the friend have an experience that was similar to hers? I'm curious. I'm a curious cat. Yes. And so her friend looking at her crazy as she's walking behind her, so she don't see her friend's face. And she lays down on the bed, and Italy nigga calls on her computer again. And she's like, oh shit, he gonna be mad because I went out last night or some stupid shit. So I don't know what this type of relationship is. Like, why is he mad that she's gonna be out? She was out last night, but then can't say I miss you and shit. Like, what? What kind of backwards gaslighting bullshit? I swear for God. God bless. God bless us all. And children. There's children. So her friend puts her to sleep. There you go. I was like, what did she do next? She like puts her little headband on for her that she sleeps in for her wig. Lay her edges down and shit. Now I lay me down to sleep. Pray the Lord my soul to keep. And then she put her eye mask on for her. And she, as she was walking out the door to go to her audition, she was just looking at her all crazy like she keep looking at her crazy like. And that's why I'm just like, did this shit happen to this bitch? Did this bitch set her friend up? I don't know. I don't know. So as she's laying there like trying to go to sleep and shit, she has another flashback of an ATM machine. And like she's at the ATM machine and she's taking money out. They call it like a cash box or some shit, money chain, some shit. I don't fucking know. Them British people calling shit different. And so then we skip to Alyssa's friend Terry at her little audition. She got on this like big curly wig, wet, like the wet curl. And they making her like do the little thing that she gotta say. And they ask her before she starts the audition, like, what's her most freeing thing she's ever done? Like, what's the most freeing thing she's ever done? And she goes, oh, I can't think of it right now, maybe later. And they're just looking at her like, oh, okay, whatever, girl. We don't like you already. And she does her little audition. She copies the words that they were saying to her and all some shit about hair and washing hair and our hair is whatever. And then the white lady's like, oh, well, like if you're talking about hair, like we're going to be like washing hair and can that be washed? And she thinks she's talking about her wig. So she's like, yeah, I could get this wet and whatever. And they're like, no, like the hair underneath. Like first they asked, is it a wig? Then they asked all them other stupid ass questions. And then they asked, like, is the hair underneath, can it be washed? Is she washed or is it human hair? And then she's like, oh yeah, it can be washed or some stupid shit. And they're like, can we see it? They're like, can we see it? Like who who says that? That's all I want to know. Who says that? But anyway, she's like, no, maybe later when I've prepared it. Like, it doesn't even, all of it is just, you shouldn't have to, the question shouldn't have been asked, okay? The question shouldn't have been asked. And so what happens next? Oh, then we skip over to Simon's little lying motherfucking ass. And his wife is talking about Alyssa. Because his wife's still thinking he got this bitch off the threesome website. The devilishness of this man. But we'll get to that. She's still thinking he got her off the threesome website. And she wanted me. She wants something for JJ. You know, whatever. All power to you, girl. And she like, has she called, blah blah blah, and he like, no. And then he made like some weird ass looking food. I don't know if maybe that's something they eat over there. It was crunchy and pasta, and I don't know what the fuck it was, but she was like, oh, this is so good, you mixed together beans and something. And he like, yeah, I blended them. Fucking no, they're talking about nothing at all. And then his phone rings, and it's Terry, the nigga that he was supposed to be hooking up with, Arabella. And he flips the phone over and shit. You know. Yes. And then we moved to Arabella. She's in her room watching brain videos and shit. No, she's in the living room with her roommate. They smoking weed and shit. And they watching like brain videos and shit. She's trying to figure out like some rational reason why, like she keeps trying to find like, oh no, it's a false memory. It's not real. It's da-da-da-da-da. And then her roommate notices the cut on her head. And he goes, oh, what happened? And she's like, and then she tells him like the memory she has of going to the ATM machine. And he's like, oh, well, let's look it up. So they look it up, and the ATM machine that she went to was 45 minutes from the place that she last remembered being, right? And she like, well, then how did I get back to my office? How did I get back to work? Because she was at work typing. She was supposed to finish her book and shit. And so that's when she decides that she's going to go talk to Simon. So she goes to Simon's house, and you know he there with his wife, and they sitting chilling, and she just started backtracking and asking him questions. She like, how did we get 45 minutes from the place that we were, but you said you took me back to work? Did we get an Uber? He's like, yeah. He's just adding on yeah every time she asks him shit on. Yeah, we get an Uber. Yeah, we did this. This nigga's stupid. And so then she's like, well, I didn't have any Uber receipts. Let me see your Uber receipts. And so he shows her his Uber receipts. You know, his wife is chiming in too, because his wife's not a part of this shit. Remember, they sent her the fuck home. They said, bitch, be gone. So she thought she was there for a threesome. But she was like, bitch, they was like, bitch, be gone. And she left. So she didn't know. So she looking suspicious too. Like, And so Simon shows her his Uber receipts, and she takes a picture of it and then throws the phone back at Simon and runs out the door. Well, she didn't run. She like power walked and shit. But still, it looked like she was running. And then she goes and she follows the address to the Uber, on the Uber receipt that they went to in Camden or whatever, or Soho or whatever the fuck they were that was 45 minutes away. Went to the address that was on the Uber receipt, and she goes to like these, you could tell it was like the poor part of the area or whatever, projects, whatever. And she knocks on the door. She don't know who the fuck's there. Open the door, and it's Alyssa. So Alyssa thinks she there to like talk shit because she fucking a nigga and he married, and she respects his wife and shit. But no, she like, I don't got a problem. I don't care. That's none of my business. None of my business. And you know, she's like, no, that's none of my business. So she was like, what she thinks is she saw somebody get assaulted at the thing that they went to last night. And Alyssa's like, she thinks her drink was spiked, so she thinks her shit was spiked. And she's like, yeah, because my roommate said like I was really sick the other day and stuff like that. And then Arabella's like, I think my shit was spiked too. And then Arabella was like, I think, I saw somebody get assaulted. So that's what she has in her mind right now. She's still trying to rationalize it. She doesn't want to see it yet. And so she goes, I think I saw somebody get assaulted. And, she's like, oh, Alyssa's like, oh, that sucks or whatever the fuck. And Arabella's like, well, the only common denominator between us two, who were both drugged and barely remember the night before, is Simon. And Alyssa goes the fuck off. She's like, Simon's a good person, and fuck you, bitch. I've been fucking him every Thursday for 6 months, bitch. If he didn't want to be over here, he don't even steal from me, girl. Bitch, you live in the projects. Have you seen where Simon lives? He lives in like a penthouse somewhere and shit. Like, the fuck you mean steal from? What would he steal? She is deluded by whatever trauma she's trying to deny. It's some bullshit. It's crazy. I was like, wow, she pushed that down and said, I'm not gonna believe anything against that nigga. She's like, he's my best friend. That's my best friend. All this stupid shit. And so Arabella's like, oh, well, I'm just gonna go buy an Uber. So, non-confrontational. That's my bitch. I'm like, I don't have time for her. She's just going on. She's like, fuck you, bitch. You ain't shit. Fuck your mama too. All this stupid shit. And Arabella's like, okay, here's my Uber. It's here. I'm getting inside now. Literally, that's some shit she was saying. And she gets in her Uber. And what happens next? She gets in her Uber, and then she calls Terry, and she tells Terry that she thinks she's been spiked, and then she's gonna go to the police station. And Terry's like, oh, really? Oh, well, I can't come because I'm at work and shit. I just realized that. I'm already at home, so I mean, maybe I don't fucking know. And so she said she's gonna go to the police, and then she calls her other friend Kwame. And Kwame comes. That's the tender nigga. Kwame comes, and he's a good friend though. He's a nice friend. Kwame comes, and he's there to like be by her side and shit. And then here comes the police officer, the popo, the counselor, whatever. And they asking her some questions. And they're like, do you remember what happened? Do you remember what the person looked like? And she's like, I just remember, I think I saw somebody get attacked. And she was like, oh, well, tell me about this memory the memory of the assault. And she was like, what? It's not a memory. It's not an assault. She was like, I didn't say that. I just said the man in my head. I was just like, oh shit. She does not want to accept it. She can't. She fragile. It's fragile. Go to that type of shit. You fragile and shit for a minute. And so she asked about the man in her head. She said, so tell me about the man in your head. And she was like, he's wearing some bathroom stall or some shit, and he has big nostrils. His nostrils are flared. Like, you remember like pinpoint shit when you experience trauma, like you hyper focus on like random details, like smells and sounds and like sights and shit, like weird shit. And then you hyper focus on that, and anything that ever reminds you of that shit is gonna re-traumatize you and shit, trigger you. It'll be a trigger, not like a re-traumatization, but like a trigger. And then so she remembered his flared nostrils. That was the thing she hyper focused on. And so the lady stands up and she's like, where would, like, when you look at a person and they have flared nostrils, they can be like taller than you, and or some shit like that. And then she basically said the nigga was hovering over her. Like, she was like, where did you look? Where were you looking from? That's what she told her. She was like, where were you looking from? Like, were you looking up? Or were you, looking down? And she realized that the dude, like, she was looking up at the dude that was hovering over her and shit, and she broke the fuck down. That shit was crazy. She broke down. And she was like, and then they were cutting in scenes where, like, she was getting the rape kit and she was peeing in a cup, and they cut in this scene with this weird ass white woman that was all like, oh, how many times have you been sexually assaulted? And she was like, this is my first. And she was like, oh, oops. Oh, and then she was like, everything is beautiful or some shit and nothing can hurt you. And I was just like, oh my gosh, God bless her. And she was just looking at her like, what the fuck? I don't know what that was about. I do not know. She had like blood on her thigh or some shit. It was blood or it was a lighting. It was one of those. And what next? So she's getting like swabbed in her mouth and stuff, and she realized there's a cut in her mouth, and I don't guess she like registered a cut in her mouth, so she started crying. She was bawling, and then like Kwame just sitting there with his eyes like wide open, like, oh shit, you know, like she got raped or some shit, and he was like in shock. And so they filed a police report and then leave the police station. And she caring about her friend, like asking her friend like about, because Terry is at her house, so Terry wasn't at the police station. Terry met up with her at her house, I guess, the girl. And she's asking Terry about her audition. I guess she caring about Terry and trying to figure out, she focusing on Terry. I don't know, because some shit Terry said at the end fucked up everything that she said when we started in on that scene. Like she like, oh Terry, I care about you and your audition, and I just wish we had stayed together and never parted and shit, or some shit like that. And Terry was like, I never left. And then she was like, yeah, you did. And Terry was like, so we're talking about some shit that we haven't seen yet. I don't know what they're talking about. So if y'all know, let me know. But she's talking about, you never, yeah, you did, you left. And Terry's like, I never left. And she was like, you were too high on a bunch of drugs and shit. And she was naming all the drugs that she had done too. She was like, I did more drugs than you. And Arabella, that's what she was saying. She was like, I did more drugs than you and you left me. And what's her name? Terry's like, no, I didn't. So I guess they're talking about some shit they went to, and they did hella drugs, and Arabella did more, and Terry left her, or some shit like that. I don't fucking know. And what's her name? Terry was like, no, I didn't. She got mad, and then she turned around, and then Kwame was like, Arabella's asleep or whatever the fuck. And then Kwame was like, you really fucked up on that audition, huh? And she was like, yeah, I was shit. And I was like, no, you wasn't, girl. No, you wasn't. But I think. Oh, and then it ends with, so I guess Simon's wife got his phone and saw the Uber receipts too, and followed it all the way to where they went. And she knocked on Alyssa's door, and she was like, she didn't know who it was, but she was like, knock, knock, knock. And Alyssa opened, and Alyssa was like, no, I ain't got time for this shit, bitch. I don't. And so she closed the door on her and shit, and she realized that nigga played her too. That nigga's trash. That nigga is trash. He drugged both of them. Basically, I don't know, sold them to his friends. I don't fucking know, like, what he did. And then tricked his wife. So when what's her name? Arabella came to the door to Alyssa's house. Alyssa was like, I just wanted to meet his wife. She was like being all gross and shit, trying to have a threesome and shit. And so basically, it sounds like he told one bitch the meeting was for one thing, and then he told the other bitch the meeting was for another thing. That's fucked up. Oh, it is. That's fucked up. This nigga is insidious. He's the demon. And then he raped them. And he probably raped Terry. Had him raped. You know, all of this is fucked up. Yeah, I hope he gets his shit fucked up. I hope they rock his fucking world. I don't know what the fuck they gonna do to him, but I hope they do something. I hope this doesn't end in some bullshit. You know, like, do something. He's spreading like trauma disease everywhere. Just sprinkling trauma everywhere. Don't give a damn. Fuck. Ugh, and his crazy ass looking cousin. Jesus, sweat. But yes, that is my review for the evening. I hope you enjoyed this evening. And yeah, I'm excited to see your thoughts. I saw a lot of comments. Well, not a lot. Oh my gosh. 2, 3, 6. Thank you for commenting. Oh shit. Yeah. Later days.